Are your comping choices sending audiences to sleep? Or maybe you're stuck in a cycle of playing the same phrases over and over again, and you're in need of some fresh ideas to push you in a new direction. Well, today we're going to break down the comping of two jazz icons, Bill Stewart and Steve Gadd, so that you can take some inspiration from their playing to level up your own. The first drummer we're going to look at is Steve Gadd and his playing on Chet Baker, Autumn Leaves. Come on mate, literally a masterclass in comping and so much to get into. So I've written out 3 different comping examples from the track that you can then learn and start to do your own thing with. The first example can be heard at 51 seconds in and it sounds like this. It's essentially a cheeky little shuffle played at the end of the bar with both hands in unison, where you also accent the last note of the bar. You can experiment with just playing an accent on the snare drum or playing an accent on both the snare and the ride cymbal, just for a change of texture. And Steve Gadd plays this phrase a fair few times throughout the track. Now as a standalone phrase, exactly as written, it would sound like this. But really, what we want to be able to do is improvise our own phrases and play with our own style, and then see if we can start to incorporate this Steve Gadd lick into our playing. If you're not too sure what to play in the improvise section, I'd definitely recommend starting off nice and simple so that you've got the headspace to actually play the Steve Gadd phrase as and when you want to. Students of the Drum Hub membership will know that I'm a massive fan of permutations, so you could always start with 1 or 2 simple triplet placements just to get you going and expand from there as you grow in confidence. So let's give it a try and see if we can add in this phrase. Sick. So now you're playing a Steve Gadd phrase, but you don't actually sound like Steve Gadd, and that's what it's all about. Taking the ideas and the inspiration, but then putting your own spin on them so that you define your own sound and you sound like you. Now I'll be real with you, the next couple of exercises are a little bit trickier. So let's go straight into exercise 2, which can be heard at 1 minute and 21 seconds in. Come on mate, tell me you haven't listened to that song before and wanted to know exactly what Steve Gadd is playing. Super techie and it sounds super sick. Essentially the phrase here is a variation on right left kick. If you play right left kick between your ride cymbal and your snare drum, it would sound like this. And then what Steve Gadd does is he turns the middle note into a double stroke. So instead of right left kick, you've got right left left kick. Now a couple of challenges here is firstly, he still plays the left foot on beats 2 and 4. So from a coordination standpoint, that's fairly tricky. And also the speed, he is playing it absolutely rapid, mate. So go slow as you get comfortable with the pattern and then gradually start to bump up your tempo. He also adds in an extra ride cymbal on the triplet upbeat of beat 4. And then in the track, he actually finishes the phrase on beat 1 with a kick and a ride. So it goes to show, sometimes hitting beat 1 at a bar in a jazz context can sound sick. So again, what I'd recommend doing next is improvising your own ideas and then seeing if you can add in this lick every so often and incorporate it into your phrasing. On your PDF, I've written out the bar before the lick just to give you an idea of what you could play leading into it, but you definitely don't have to play this. Experiment, see what you like the sound of and see what you can come up with. So let's give that a go. Absolute beast of a phrase, mate, but super fun to play. And once you get it down, honestly, it feels so good. So now let's go on to our third example. Exercise 3 is an extended phrase that goes over 4 bars, and you can hear this at 2 minutes and 1 second in. So tasteful and so musical, mate. Steve Gadd has too much finesse. And the jury's out as to whether you'd describe this as a comping phrase or a fill. It's somewhere in between the two, but either way, it sounds sick, so let's get into it. Now this phrase is a little bit more complex. The way that I personally think of it is as a 3-beat phrase that repeats. So you're gonna hit your ride on beat 1 of the first bar, and then the next 3 beats really give you the foundational phrasing for the rest of the 4 bars. You could sing that rhythm, da 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 da. Da 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 da. And in terms of the voicings, he's playing a mixture of cymbals. So personally, I'm kind of just going around in a circle. So I'm playing kick and ride, snare by itself, open hi-hat, kick and crash, and then snare by itself. Of course, the textures, the voicings, the cymbals, that's all stuff that you can improvise and experiment with anyway. So as a standalone phrase, that would sound like this. Now, by the point that Steve Gadd plays the phrase for the second time, he starts to fill in some of the missing triplets on the snare drum, but the foundation is still there. We still have the same notes in the same position, there's just extra snares in between. So if we loop round this 3-beat phrase here, with all the snares added in, the sticking I'm playing is right, left, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. And that honestly works great as a standalone little lick or sticking for fills. You can start to move that around the drums and see what you can come up with. Now how Steve Gadd plays it is he also adds in some other little variations. For example, here he substitutes one of the snare drums for a kick. And then to finish off, he repeats these 2 beats here until the end of the bar to help it to resolve. So it all sounds very complicated when you pick it apart like that, but what I'm really thinking about is that overall foundation and trying to hear the rhythm and the melody in my head. Da 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 da. That's personally how I'm hearing it anyway, so I'll play it for you slow and then fast so that you can hear the overall feel. Such sick phrasing, and you can probably guess what I'm going to suggest next. Once you've got the phrase down, now it's time to improvise your own ideas and see if you can drop into the phrasing as and when you choose to. This is all about building up the control to be able to play the notes that you're actually aiming to play, as well as, of course, getting more into the headspace of the jazz drumming icons such as Steve Gadd so that we can take inspiration from their playing. So let's give that a try. Yes, mates, I know you're going to have some serious fun with that one, man. If you're looking to expand your jazz vocabulary and you want to go deeper on comping, I've just put out a new chapter all about jazz comping on the Your Intro to Bebop course on the Drum Hub membership. I'll put a link in the video description if you want to check that out. So now the next drummer we're going to look at is Bill Stewart and is playing on John Scofield Fall in Grace. There's a lot to unpick there, but for me personally, there was two big things that really stood out. The first one was voicings and the second one was texture. So that's the approach that we're going to go with whilst we start to look at some of the phrases. The first couple of phrases I've written out are centered around the left foot, which is honestly one of my favorite things about Bill Stewart's playing, just so much independence and freedom with all four of his limbs. If you look at example 1, you can see that we've got these stepped hi-hats played on triplet upbeats, leading into a snare drum and ride cymbal in unison on the downbeat. You can hear this phrase a lot throughout the track, so here's a quick example. So if we count through what I've written, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, So we're playing those stepped hi-hats on the of 4 and the of 1. So of course, step 1, really you just want to get the phrase down as written. So you could have a go at playing it slow. And then, like with the Steve Gadd phrases, I'd really recommend seeing if you can improvise your own ideas and drop in this Bill Stewart lick every so often to incorporate it into your overall sound. He plays the phrase in different placements throughout the track, and sometimes he'll even extend it for longer. So experiment with it and see what you like the sound of. 6 sounding phrase. It's going to be tricky if you've not used your left foot in that kind of way before, but it's definitely worth putting the time into because it sounds wicked. Now the next phrase we're going to look at has a similar kind of feel but pushes it a little bit harder, and you can hear this at 58 seconds in. So for this phrase, we're really going to play the classic ride cymbal pattern, and then we're doubling up our snare with the ride cymbal on the downbeat and the upbeat of beat 2 and 4. Seems pretty straightforward so far, until we add in the left foot. So to start off, everything seems normal as you play your left foot on beat 2 of the bar, but then once you get to beat 3 to the end of the phrase, you're going to play only on the upbeats. Basically, we want to play our left foot on the triplet upbeat before the snare phrase. The left foot placement really helps to change the overall feel of the phrase, and especially at the tempo he's playing it at, it gives it a sense of urgency. So I'll play it for you slow and fast exactly as written so you can get a feel for it. And again, my challenge to you is to see if you can improvise while starting to bring in the phrase as and when you choose to. Definitely getting pretty techie, but you can imagine how much you could do with a phrase like that and how much mileage you could get out of that overall concept of adding in your left foot on the triplet upbeats. The next phrase we're going to play is all about adding in buzz strokes. The exact phrase I've written out can be heard at 49 seconds in. 6. I feel like this is another classic sound of Bill Stewart's playing. Those buzz stroke phrases he adds in sound wicked. So he's playing with more of a broken feel on the ride, and then filling in a lot of the spaces with ghost notes on the snare drum, and then of course playing these big buzz stroke accents, which is really the defining feature of the phrase. If we count out the rhythm, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the phrase is really led by the placement of the buzz strokes on the downbeat of 4 in the first bar, downbeat of 3, and the upbeat of 4 in the second bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, Let me play this one for you slow and fast so you can hear how it sounds isolated. It's actually pretty difficult to loop it round like that at a faster tempo, but the good news is it's pretty unlikely that you actually need to when you start to improvise with it. So again, I challenge you to have a go at improvising your own phrases and see if you can start to get this Bill Stewart phrase into your playing. Another banger of a phrase, mate. And this is why Bill Stewart and Steve Gadd, for that matter, are two of my favourite jazz drummers, particularly for that more modern spin on comping. But now you're loaded up with all of these different comping phrases, it really is over to you to do your own thing with them and see what you can come up with. And then it's super important to pick and choose your moments when you're playing with a band. Some of these phrases are quite busy and complicated, so you don't necessarily want to blast them all over the place. Sometimes it's prime time to play a lot of notes and play really busy, and at other times you're better off just holding it down on the ride cymbal with your left foot on 2 and 4, but only you can be the judge of which one to choose and when. If you'd like some more options of how you could phrase your ride cymbal, you can check out this video here, and if you'd like to go deeper on your overall bebop phrasing, feel free to check out the Your Intro to Bebop course on the Drum Hub membership. I'll put a link in the video description, and I'll catch you in the next one.